I did something that would make most people call me ruthless. Honestly, after what he tried to pull, I sleep like a baby. Let me tell you about the time my neighbor tried to steal my house. Here's how it started. I'm a real estate lawyer, name's Alex, and I've always believed in the sanctity of property rights. I bought my little slice of suburban heaven in 2015. Nice, quiet street in the suburbs of Chicago. 2-story colonial, decent-sized yard, perfect for grilling and letting my golden retriever Gus run around. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just a place to call my own after years of bouncing around apartments after law school. My neighbor to the east was named Bob. Bob was a character. Always had a smirk on his face like he knew something you didn't. He ran a landscaping business, or at least that's what he told everyone. I suspected he was cutting more corners than lawns. He was the kind of guy who always had a project going. A new shed, an elaborate patio, a ridiculously oversized above-ground pool. He always seemed to be right on the edge of violating some kind of zoning ordinance, but he always managed to squeak by. What my neighbor didn't know was that my wife, Sarah, worked in the county records office. She knew all the zoning rules better than anyone, and I had made a point of keeping her up to date on Bob's activities. Things were peaceful enough for the first few years. We'd exchange pleasantries over the fence, maybe share a beer during the summer. He even hired me once to review a contract for his business. But then, about 3 years ago, things started to get weird. It started small, with Bob subtly encroaching on my property. First, it was just the edge of his lawn creeping over the property line. Then, he started storing some of his landscaping equipment, shovels, rakes, wheelbarrows, on what was very clearly my land. I let it slide for a while. I'm not one for confrontation, and honestly, I was busy with a big case at the firm. But then, he put up a shed right on the property line, and he did it while I was away on a business trip, figuring I wouldn't notice until it was too late to do anything about it. When I got back, Sarah met me at the door, her face tight with anger. "He did it, Alex. He actually did it. I told you he was going to try something." I walked out to the backyard and saw it. The shed. Ugly, prefab, and sitting squarely on what was legally my property. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. I walked over to Bob's yard and knocked on his door. He answered with that infuriating smirk on his face. "Hey, Alex," he said. "Welcome back. See you got to check out my new shed?" "Bob," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "the shed's on my property." He chuckled. No, Alex, you must be mistaken. I had a survey done. It's all perfectly legal." "A survey?" I said. "When did you have a survey done?" "A while ago," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Don't worry about it. It's all taken care of." That's when I knew he was trying to pull something. That's when I knew I had to go to war. Because what my neighbor didn't realize was that I wasn't just some pushover suburbanite. I was a lawyer, and I knew the law, especially the law about property rights. I told him I'd look into it. He smiled and said, "Good luck with that." I went back inside and immediately called Sarah. "Get me everything you can find on Bob. Permits, surveys, property records, everything." She didn't ask questions. She knew I meant business. The next morning, Sarah dropped off a thick file at my office. I spent the next few hours poring over the documents. And that's when I found it. The smoking gun. A forged survey. Bob had doctored the property lines to make it look like the shed was on his land. He'd even gone so far as to forge the surveyor's signature. You know what the worst part was? The forged survey wasn't the only thing. He had filed a claim for adverse possession. He was trying to steal my land. He thought if he occupied it long enough, he could legally claim it as his own. I felt a surge of anger like I had never felt before. This wasn't just about a shed anymore. This was about principle. This was about defending what was rightfully mine. And this was about teaching Bob a lesson he would never forget. The next day, I asked him about the shed. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Alex, it's my property now. You snooze, you'll lose." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. He had no idea what was coming. I immediately got to work on a lawsuit. I sued him for trespass, for property damage, for fraud, and for attempting to commit adverse possession. I wanted to hit him with everything I had. I also filed a complaint with the state bar, accusing him of forging legal documents. But here's what nobody expected. Bob doubled down. He hired a lawyer, a sleazy ambulance chaser named Larry, and countersued me, claiming harassment and emotional distress. He even tried to get a restraining order against me, claiming I was threatening him. He spread rumors about me around the neighborhood, trying to turn everyone against me. Things looked bleak. It seemed like Bob might actually get away with it. My neighbors started avoiding me. My wife was stressed. I even started doubting myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just let it go. That thought lasted about 5 minutes. I thought of his smug face. I thought of him breaking the law. I thought of him trying to steal what was mine. I refused to back down. If stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, hit subscribe. I drop a new one every single day. My first move was to file a motion for summary judgment, arguing that there was no genuine issue of material fact and that I was entitled to judgment as a matter of law. I presented the forged survey, the property records, and testimony from the real surveyor, who confirmed that Bob had never hired him. Larry, Bob's lawyer, tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that Bob had simply relied on bad information. The judge didn't buy it. "Mr. Larry," the judge said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "are you seriously suggesting that your client didn't know he was forging legal documents?" Larry stammered, trying to come up with an explanation, but it was no use. The judge granted my motion for summary judgment on all counts. Bob's countersuit was dismissed. But here's the part nobody saw coming. I wasn't just satisfied with winning the lawsuit. I wanted to make sure Bob paid for what he had done. So I filed a motion for sanctions, asking the court to order Bob to pay my attorney's fees and costs. I argued that his conduct had been frivolous, vexatious, and in bad faith. And the judge agreed. "Mr. Bob," the judge said, "I am ordering you to pay Mr. Alex's attorney's fees and costs in this matter. And I'm also referring you to the state bar for disciplinary action." Bob's face turned white. He started to sweat. He realized he had made a huge mistake. But here's the thing about Bob. He never learned. He decided to represent himself against the ethics charges with the bar, which, as you can imagine, didn't go well. He ended up losing his landscaping license. I watched from my office window as Bob packed up his equipment and loaded it into his truck. He looked defeated, humiliated, and broke. He drove off into the sunset, never to be seen again. The consequences cascaded. Bob lost his business, then his wife found out about the forged documents and a few other indiscretions, and she left him. Then the bank foreclosed on his house. He lost everything, all because he tried to steal my property. Today, I'm still living in my little slice of suburban heaven. Gus still runs around the yard. I have a new neighbor. She's a sweet old lady who brings me cookies every Christmas. And I'm still a real estate lawyer, fighting for the rights of property owners everywhere. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe I should have just accepted the shed as a cost of living next to a jerk. Then I remember the forged survey. I remember the adverse possession claim. I remember the look on his face when he said, "You snooze, you lose." And I know I did the right thing. Do you think reporting him to the bar was crossing a line, or was it exactly what he deserved? I genuinely want to know. Tomorrow, I'm telling you about the time a client tried to pay me in Bitcoin, and it turned out to be a scam worth millions.